really get to just totally reimagine the dealership entirely because of this layer that exists now.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's back to it's the employees that have to work and manage the agents. As long as they can, or use the agents, leverage the agents, but ultimately they can do anything because the agent is doing the heavy lifting, has the deep knowledge. They just need the customer experience. They just have to be good with people and get interactions and that sort of thing. So it just changes everything.
So you have a good view of kind of where things are going. What are you working on now? What does the future look like for Legend Boats with all this? Today in the podcast, we have Jamie Dewar, who is the co-CEO of Legend Boats. Legend Boats is not only a boat manufacturer, but they also even sell boats direct to consumer with 4 dealerships across Canada. I think Legend Boats are sold in something like 60 stores nationwide. So very, very cool perspective they have from manufacturing all the way down to dealership operations. And to have Jamie on the show is a real treat because he understands all the moving pieces that go along with it. And he's incredibly creative in coming up with new ways of getting this stuff done. So we spend a lot of time talking about AI. So a little bit of a warning here. If you don't know a ton about AI, there's going to be a lot to learn while we're in it. We'll explain some things in some really basic ways, but Jamie is a great example of somebody who's really trying emerging technologies and how do we get this stuff into the store? How do you use AI on a daily basis? And what does the future of this look like inside of dealerships? So we share some of the things that we're working on and building right now. So first time kind of debuting some of the new really interesting concepts we're putting out. And Jamie shares some ideas that are really revolutionary as well. So this is a really fun podcast. It's a very technical podcast as well, but hope you enjoy it. If you have questions, reach out to us. And if you have any suggestions for the show, for sponsorship, or if you want to be on the show, reach out to dealerlab@onex.io. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and enjoy this episode. Today, we have Jamie Dewar with us. Now, Danny, you hadn't met Jamie before, but we actually already recorded one pass of this entire podcast and then screwed up the audio. So we get to do it again.
Did we not? I thought we met somewhere. I thought it might have been at the Power Sports Business Conference or the Elevate.
Yep,
yes.
Elevate Conference, yes.
Briefly. You and Max were just talking about AI stuff the whole time. Yeah. So I didn't really get a word in.
You couldn't get a word in, yeah. Exactly. We were going off.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here, is to talk about all the fun AI craziness that can be built. And so just for context's sake, Danny, so you know, the listeners, so they know as well, co-CEO, is that right, of Legend Boats?
Yep, that's right. Co-CEO, so I've got a partner in the business, and we focus on different things, but 2 CEOs, yes.
Nice. So it wasn't like CEO, COO. It was like, no, I want the E as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. So tell me more about Legend Boats. I know it is a huge operation, more than just a dealership. So what are you guys?
Yeah, we're a bit unique in that we're, part manufacturer, distributor, wholesaler, and we sell direct to consumer as well. So we do have 4 of our own retail dealerships. So, we really see that as a huge advantage in that we kind of have our finger on the pulse. We get to experience a lot of the same pain points that a lot of dealers kind of experience in the industry. It's very, very repetitive and common frustrations when you talk to dealers when we go to these different conferences and that sort of thing. It's really surprising to hear and refreshing to hear sometimes that everyone's struggling with the same struggles that you are, and working together to try and solve them is always fun. So so on the manufacturing side, basically we do a lot of the final assembly. So we're not doing the raw material, cold rolled aluminum manufacturing. We have some different partners that will build stuff to our specifications. Then we get them in and do, again, we add custom components and the engines, electronics, canvas, swim platform, all that sort of stuff. We'll kind of do a final build and then we'll ship them to partners across Canada. So Canada only from BC to Newfoundland.
How many dealers do you have across Canada?
We've got about 55 to 60, depending on multi-location and that sort of thing across the country. Yep.
That is great. Man, what an incredibly unique perspective you have, because you can see it from the manufacturer side all the way down to, you're right, exactly what's going on. You know how it is to be a dealer and dealing with customers and all that stuff. It's really interesting perspective. So I'm glad you can give us the whole picture as well.
Yeah, we get both sides of the coin, so to speak, and I think ultimately what we try to do is we do realize how difficult it can be in the industry, right? The automotive industry is much larger and it's a lot more automation, a lot more standardization, whereas in marine there's a lot more variety in terms of parts, accessories, suppliers, brands, even, right? There's just a lot of option out there, and it's not high volume. Like a high volume boat is hundreds or maybe 1,000 or something, whereas a high volume car obviously is hundreds of thousands, and so that poses some challenges. So we understand that side, and we try and make it as easy as possible. So that's one of our core values, but making it easy for our partners as well as for the end consumer, and everything in between, which sometimes making it easy is actually hard to do, but we try our best.
So what route did you guys take to become this manufacturer, distributor, dealer model? I mean, were you a dealer first, manufacturer? Were you in boats? Or where'd you start?
It started in tires. So we were a tire, this was a long time ago. The company's been around for over 55 years. In 1968, we were founded. So basically, we were a tire manufacturer, and then we actually got into lawn equipment, like John Deere lawn equipment. And then we got into RVs as a kind of an RV dealer. And that was kind of an interesting story. One of our kind of co-founders wanted his own RV. So in order to get a deal, he kind of talked to some of the manufacturers in Indiana and said, hey, we're looking to become a reseller. So can I get a deal on one? He brought it home for personal use, had it on a lot and on a kind of a busy, I guess, highway or roadway at that time. And someone said, oh, is that for sale? He said, oh, everything's for sale. So sold that and then kind of rinse and repeat and started selling RVs. And then boats became sort of a natural, as you see a lot with RV, power sports, marine, kind of they go hand in hand a lot of the time. So got into selling other brands of boats early on, and then saw there's an opportunity in Canada, especially with our kind of climate, and we're in Northern Ontario, so it's kind of some harsh climates at times. Saw an opportunity to kind of maybe customize some fishing features, some construction, thicker aluminum, just something that was designed sort of for the Canadian customer, and then we basically, after building up a lot of other brands, said, hey, there's an opportunity here to do something a little bit different, and started our own brand under Legend Boats in the mid 80s. And then from there, kind of never looked back. So that kind of grew at the retail level, actually. We were doing trade shows all over not over the country, but sort of Ontario, Quebec. And how we started down the dealer path is we were outselling the local dealers. Hey, instead of you having to come here and do these shows, why don't you just sell us the boats, give us some sort of a deal on the boats, and we'll resell them. And we said, hey, maybe that's not a bad idea. We don't love traveling, 12 hours or 13 hours to do a trade show. And that's kind of how we got our first dealers started. And then that's how the partner network kind of started to form. And then in 2000, we got out of the RV space and just saw a bigger opportunity in being different and making a difference in the marine space. So been out of RVs and focused on marine since 2000.
What a ton of pivots. That is an incredible amount of let's do that now. Let's go this direction. Is that just like part of how the company's always run? Is that the founders that started it? Like his ADHD, how did this work out?
Yeah, that's definitely, we always look for opportunities, and things change, right? As even the dealer model, I think that's something that you guys are really, with the dealer labs, that's kind of what you're doing. You're saying, hey, the dealership of the past is not the dealership of the future. And so I think you have to be willing to look at, hey, what's changed in the world? How are things different? What's in demand? What's not in demand? What's there an opportunity for? And be willing and able to make those moves.
Yeah. Well,
I think the biggest thing is not like, what's the next thing to do? It's a lot of times being willing to let go of things that you've done for a really long time. And that's usually pretty hard, but it sounds like y'all have always been willing to make cuts where needed and go into uncharted territory. It sounds like something my dad would do.
Yeah, sometimes you don't do it as fast as you should, though. So it is hard to change. So sometimes you have a bad habit for a while. It becomes a bad habit, and you stick with that bad habit for too long. But eventually, you got to try and break that habit and get into the good habits.
That RV story is hilarious. That is exactly something my dad would do and has done. He had an RV rental business for a while.
There you go.
Because he wanted us to have an RV and also make money on it. Ended up with 5 RVs.
And probably a good business. That's the thing.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So Jamie, before we get into the future dealership of the future, I want to know more about you. Your background. You are you're a very high flyer in the organization. You do a lot of stuff, but you're also very technical, like software technical. Give me some background. How would you end up there? What'd you do before?
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit of a tech geek at heart. So I've always been into technology since I was, younger, just playing around and different. I remember little widget apps in Microsoft, and that's when you could, I don't know, I was always just playing around with technology and was always sort of passionate about it, but I always loved business as well. My background from a schooling standpoint, I was always wanted to do business. It was, maybe a more broad, I guess, degree that really applies to everything. So I looked at a program that was kind of a business degree with like basically a minor in like some technology type side of things. But then a new program came out right before I went to university. I went to Wilfrid Laurier in Waterloo, and there was a new program that just came out before I went that was a double degree program. So it's like you get 2 4-year degrees in 5 years. So I have a physics and computing degree and a business administration degree. So I was able to do kind of both at the same time. So it worked out really, really well. So that's, again, I'm kind of passionate about the tech side. I've always stay up to date with it, and it kind of excites me, but I love business just as much. So I've been fortunate to be able to kind of live in the world of both.
If there isn't a perfect time for both of those degrees to like be right in the position that you're in, it's incredible that you've got like the perfect pedigree to do what we're doing, is like design systems and software to make it work together. That is really, so how did you find Legend Boats though? How'd you end up there?
So we're second generation. So my father was one of the founders. So Carl Dewar and then Vic Duhamel, my co-CEOs, and my partner's father was the other founder. And so they started the company from scratch, like I said, back in the 60s. And around that time, and they kind of grew, they didn't amazing, they just hustled, and they were really innovative and creative and always trying different marketing things, really just, again, a lot of iteration and trial. And if something new came out there, especially from the marketing side, they were all over it. And so they built the company up, built a very financially strong kind of base, I guess. And so when I was graduating university, I sort of had, and I grew up in the company working summer sales, different things as well, even some programming, some database stuff, and some networking and some of the IT side of things. So I grew up in the business. And when I graduated, it was sort of, I was either going to go do something on my own, potentially like a business of some sort, or do I join this company in this great industry? And I just saw the opportunity of like, you have this great base, a great brand, and a great opportunity to kind of do a lot of really, big things with it that would take a lot longer if you were starting from scratch with a lot more uncertainty and a lot more risk. So I was fortunate to be able to come to the business, and very fortunate, but both my business partner is a little bit older than I am, about 10 years older. My father and his partner were still very involved in the business. I was very fortunate. They opened up. I was involved in everything. They let me kind of sit in any meeting. There was nothing off limits. It's very, very transparent. Cool. I'm a big believer in transparency now because of it, but that was very, very beneficial.
So was it your dad that bought that first RV? Is that?
No, actually, his partner was the RV. My dad liked RVs as well. We grew up, RVing, and I love it and loved it, but a lot of great memories. But it was actually his partner, and he was hardcore into RV. He just loves RVing. So
yeah. All right. So when we were at Elevate or Accelerate for the power sports side, the power sports business conference in January, we ran into you and we were talking about all of the very cool things that at the time we were vibe coding, and you and I both have been vibe coding tons and tons of tools. I've created a couple of them for desking deals, for managing parts inventory and major unit inventory. So a bunch of different tools. But I bring it up because I would say probably, when did vibe coding really became a thing? About a year ago. About a year ago, like Replit and some of the other programs started coming out, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I want to know about kind of your take on it. I mean, when you saw vibe coding happen, how'd you kind of, what did you think? What did you start working on? What did you start playing with? And then I guess maybe before we do start that, I should probably say vibe coding, for people that don't know what vibe coding is basically just writing software using AI. It's describing the thing that you want, and then AI can create it, and you iterate on that, and then basically can just build a software from scratch based on the descriptions of what you want built. So Jamie, take it away. What's some of the first things that you started building?
Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed, actually. You say a year ago, and it was, you start playing with something, you're trying to build a little database, a little tracking tool. I can't remember honestly what the first thing was, but I know it didn't work. Like, again, you get in, it sort of worked, but then you get this error, and then it just keeps sort of in this cycle of like, oh, it can't print, and then, oh, I fixed it, and you try again, and it can't print. And so it was something very small, but I remember it being not functional. And so you kind of drop it for a little bit, and then a few months go by, AI and you're like, oh, I heard about this new tool, Replit, or I was using Google AI Studio is another one, but try to, hey, this works a little bit better. And so we built basically a menu selling tool is one of the first probably things that worked well and that's functional that we're really starting to use today that's had an impact. So menu selling for like a desking tool for a business office that's selling extended warranties, insurances, and that sort of stuff. And so we built something that just allows you to put a menu together, really a good, better, best type of menu. And then from there, I've just been iterating though. Now that things are getting better and faster, you can get a little bit more complex with it and it's more reliable, is that we're building it almost into a full broker suite for like a financial broker that we would have here, say in Canada, that can do the desking, but also a bit of a mini CRM, a bit of a form building tool, like all these different elements of what you would need to run a financial brokerage. That's an example of one of the early tools I started with that we've been plugging away with. But it is amazing to see how much better it's gotten in the last, like say even 6 months, say 6 months ago, it was glitchy limitations. Now you can literally build almost anything in hours, minutes, hours, days. You've got
and so I assume if you started using those, you're clearly, just like everybody who's been playing with AI, you begin to like graduate from one level to the next, right? Everybody starts using AI as a chatbot and asking it questions, and then they realize, oh, you can actually have it do things like vibe code and build a tool and launch it, and then you get further and further into agentics and other systems as well. One thing that from the vibe coding perspective, we've been trying to overcome, and is a little complicated when you're building all these little tools, is making sure these things connect and integrate. What are you building on right now to make sure that you're either kind of building one consistent component that all shares the same data, or how are you connecting that data? Being a tech nerd on your own as well.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that honestly you struggle with it because it's so easy that it's very easy to get off track. And I don't know if it's off track or on track. Honestly, I don't know what the right approach is, but it's very easy. We've opened this up to a lot of people, a lot of the leaders in our organization is, hey, go ahead and build the tools that you need. And then you start, oh, hey, they're really adopting this a lot quicker than I thought. And so they're building more than I thought, and they're building these awesome tools. And I'm like, okay, whoa, let's take a step back now and put a bit of a strategy together, because now you're going to have all these tools that are kind of standalone, but you're back to this old issue where you didn't have kind of like one system. You had all these different systems.
Everything's fragmented.
But I am still torn, and I don't know. I think it's a bit of a balance. Even I was at a Salesforce conference recently, and one of the speakers, I was actually, I think someone from Lightspeed, that was talking about their approach with development and some agentic AI and some vibe coding, that sort of stuff. Is they said you kind of have to have a balance where you have the longer term plan where you tie it all together and it's more strategic and the bigger picture, but there is it's so fast and easy that there's an opportunity that you should also be building some of these little tools that save you time like immediately. Because the bigger plan still does take months or weeks or months, whereas you could build a tool today that could save you like hours a day and be done by tomorrow. And so it is a sort of balance. And so I don't know that I have the best solution. We definitely have taken a step back with our head of IT to say, okay, let's map out this project and make sure that we're building this together. And if we do get more people involved, we're building it all on the same platform, because you can coordinate in these vibe coding tools to have multiple people invited and collaborating on the same project. And then that way you're working within the same database. So that's probably, again, it's a long, not real answer to your question, but I'd say that would be the quick answer is you could share and collaborate on one tool and use that as your database. And that's one solution, but there's a lot of different ways you can tackle it.
Well, no, we've seen that exact same thing. One example is, we've been building tools, or we started building tools in Replit originally, right? Those were our kind of vibe coded versions. And you're right, every single tool that we built didn't really communicate very effectively with each other. So our next step was, okay, how do we build these tools not just within the Replit ecosystem, not just like in their own databases, but how do I build something where we've got a consistent database structure where that can be shared for all these little plug-in like widget applications that we've created. Mm-hmm. So that's been our next move. And we've done that with primarily using Claude Code. So you kind of like, you graduate from Replit into like Claude Codes, because you're, at least previously, you were writing directly in the terminal. You were doing like more kind of, not even necessarily coding. I'm still talking to the chatbot just in the terminal. But it does allow us to start connecting all the database on our local computer. And now we can we can build one tool that quotes a customer and another tool that checks a customer in for service, and it has that same customer database. And so that's been kind of the next big step for us. So for you guys, in your big long-range plan of building out some of this software, what are you building on top of now if you're kind of coordinating things?
Yep. So you know this, we've talked a little bit, but we're very much a Salesforce kind of backend. So we use Salesforce as it essentially is our database. We've built a lot of custom tools in Salesforce over the years, and we've been with Salesforce for a long time as a platform. So again, our partner portal and partner community, our boat ordering, warranty claiming, at the back end of it, it's all Salesforce. And so one of the strategies that we have is anything that we build, we're basically building somewhat of an API on the Salesforce side. So we have the ability to, anything we build externally that's maybe faster, maybe a little sleeker, more modern than what we would have to build if we were building it in Salesforce. We can build that quick using the vibe coding tools, but always with the intention and the plan. We just wire that in and connect that so that the database, the data storage is in Salesforce. So from a bigger picture, strategic, longer term standpoint, we still do have, there's a lot of history and data in Salesforce. And so we're still using that as our backend, but we'll wire all of these little tools, whether it's the service tool, the check-in tool, the walk-around tool, the sales tool, the builder, all that stuff. We just tie that to the data structure and wire it in. So
and is this the Salesforce Headless 360? The headless agent that just made?
That's actually new. So we're not using that yet, but that will make it a lot easier. So what we were doing now, we were building our own sort of API with our Salesforce data. So that's a bit more time consuming and tedious. The Headless 360 is going to make it a lot easier because you'll have more vibe coding AI tools to connect them, and it's more open to connect to. So that's going to make our lives a lot easier. But even without that, that was always our plan. So that's why we're excited about. They just introduced this not too long ago, but this Headless 360 that lets you build React apps or whatever app you want using vibe coding outside of Salesforce and then connect it into the data more easily. So that'll be a huge benefit.
Danny, I don't know if you're following along yet. Let me try and break this down into just a non-technical, non-AI geek version. Basically, the idea of building all these little bitty tools, little individual things that I think the best part about building these little tools is that you don't have to be a programmer, you don't have to be technically skilled, you don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to know this is the information that I have and this is the information I want to get out of it. And then the AI can help you design a system that helps make that happen. Now, the data that needs to be plugged in, actually, we've got a quote building tool that wasn't connected to the DMS yet, right? So we have this incredible, beautiful tool, but it required the employees of the dealership to still input customer information and major unit information. But man, it would be so much cooler if it was just pulling that information directly out of the DMS or customer information directly out of the CRM. So there's no double entry. So once you have all these little individual applications and you create an API where you can connect into an existing database, then suddenly you've unlocked that database to your new tool and can use it a lot more effectively. And so building your own APIs does take a while. It is tedious, but Salesforce, and I had heard a bit about this in a podcast a couple weeks ago as well, Salesforce just did a big announcement that they have created a headless agent. And what a headless agent basically means, it is a fully functioning application that they're giving you access to, a program kind of that you're giving you access to, but you don't actually see and interact with it at all. So it's actually not even designed for humans to utilize. It's designed for AI agents to use. So they can go and communicate directly with Salesforce and pull all the data that they need automatically. Am I getting that right, Jamie?
I looked it up right here. It transforms the CRM into a fully programmable browser-less system designed for AI agents, allowing them to interact directly with data, workflows, and logic.
Yeah.
Wild.
So with Salesforce, they give the example. They basically said that you will never log into, and even a lot of their employees or team members, they will never log into Salesforce. So most of what they're doing, they acquired Slack several years ago, but they've done a really good job. Slack is sort of that. Most people are familiar with Slack, but it's basically a hub or a communications hub, and a lot more. But ultimately, with their AI bots that are in Slack, a Slack bot is that ultimately everything that you'll be doing, you'll just say, hey, add this customer. Hey, hey, Slackbot, add this, do this, give me the information on that. And you never log into your software. You're literally just interacting with an agent that has access to all of your data, all your information. You can say, hey, I have a podcast in in a half an hour. Give me a summary of all of our history and what I should talk about. And boom, here's your notes for your content based on everything you have in your database without ever logging into your database. So that's kind of
you must have seen what my screen currently has, which is the agent that did all the prep documentation for this podcast. Yeah.
There you go.
Obviously, there's gonna be an agent that does that. So yeah, actually, so agentics, I think by the time we talked last time, we recorded a podcast a month ago and then had to re-record it. From that time till now, we had started dabbling in agents before, and it's come so much further now. I had mentioned before we started recording, we built a, for lack of better words, supercomputer. We have a badass computer sitting right behind the TV that we're talking on right here. And that is a computer built entirely to run local AI agents. And just like you mentioned, Slack is a communication channel. That's really all it is, right? It's a way for us to instant message each other. But the AI agent that we created on that computer, I communicate to via Slack. So her name is Samantha. We could just message in Slack, and she can not only communicate back with me like a chatbot, but she can build her own software on her computer. She can create new agents. She can deploy things. And now one of the big shifts that we just did is now she can create in programs on our behalf. And so this is not totally new news for people who have been doing agents already. You can, if you're using Claude, you can use Claude Cowork, you can use Claude Code. They can get into your file system. They can do other things. But we've created our agents now to be able to basically act as an employee. So I can create a log of a customer, I can get a lead, and it can automatically push that into my CRM, or it can automatically create an invoice in my DMS. It can automatically do all these additional tasks. And that's where, when we're trying to envision where this is finally going, the first thing we thought was maybe what it'll be is that we're going to build this suite of tools. We're going to build this platform with that data set, like I talked about before, where we've got our own database structured of customers and units and parts and all those things all stored in one location. And then we build a bunch of apps on top of it. And so any dealership can log into our platform. Actually, you can right now, platform.onyx.io. You can log into that for free. You set up your account, and then there's apps that you can basically just sign up for. So, okay, I want this deal building app. And so we'll pull up Deal Builder, and now you can interact with it. All that data saves into the database here. And if I build another app that manages inventory, that inventory is going to be communicating with that deal builder as well. So now everything you build on provides more data into this centralized data structure. So that was kind of the initial plan. That's what we've been kind of building toward and working on. But recently, Danny and I started building a new agentic system we're going to deploy in the dealer lab that is based on interacting more exclusively with your agent. And so this is, it honestly, when I heard about not DB360, when I heard about Salesforce Headless 360 agent, it's kind of, it's where I think, it's not going to happen in our industry right away, but I think it's where overall software is going, where if you have a headless agent that you can say, hey, add this customer to my CRM, or make a note to follow up with this person later, and it does all the work for you. Do you ever really need a SaaS interface? Do you need a screen that shows you a certain thing? And so does it just become an opportunity where you talk to an agent and it can execute things on your behalf? So much so that I can say, let's say I've got a customer that walks into my dealership and says, hey, I want this showy helmet in medium in this color. And I tell my agent that, and it finds where the closest location is. It places it on order. It creates the invoice. That invoice is just a unique ticket that's created. So just to round out this idea, then I'm going to kick it over to you. What you think? One thing that I've found very interesting with AI recently is that if you're using, let's say, just Claude Chat, the regular Claude.ai chatbot you're talking to, you can interact with it and ask it any question, and it can return text, right? It'll say, oh, here's the answer you were looking for, or let's walk through an idea or description. But then sometimes I'll be having conversations with it about the best way to, calculate flooring interest on major units. And as we go back and forth in words, it's pretty complicated. I got to understand the concept. They've got to understand the concept. But now AI chatbots can build in any language. So they're not just writing back to me in English, they can write in HTML. And when they write in HTML, they're creating their own website, their own interactive tool. So I can say, okay, there's so many moving pieces of flooring interest and cost and pricing over time. Build me a tool that shows how those components interact with each other. And it can instantly create this thing that allows me to project where numbers are going to go. If you think of the evolution of that, I feel like if I'm talking to an agent who is a good service advisor or a good salesperson, and like that's what it's trained on, is to help run a dealership. And I say, okay, well, we got to build a quote for this customer who's interested in trading in this vehicle and getting this vehicle and adding these accessories. They can instantly create that one ticket as exactly whatever we need to show, the pictures of it, how it's going to work together, all of the components on that one vehicle. And then we can say, great, build it. And that pushes all my information to my DMSs and my CRMs and my vendor profiles and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's funny because I think one of the reasons, like ChatGPT was obviously the big name originally on kind of AI, right? Where you kind of, and people use it as a search engine replacement originally. But I think the key part is chat, right? Is that was just an interface. Like that communication is just so simple. Talking,
Yep.
you refer to like the headless, how you're not really going to be going into software or SaaS products, or there's no interface anymore because chat's easier. And that's why ChatGPT took off so quickly and grew so quickly, because you're just chatting.
Yeah.
Everybody, like there's no complexity to the interface.
Agreed.
Because it's chat. And so now you're seeing this where it will build you tools or program or do stuff. Like then it was kind of talk with you and give you information, but now people can just chat, which is everyone knows how to chat, everyone knows how to talk, everyone knows how to type or to communicate. And so now it'll build things for you. And it has gotten to the point that it's so easy. Actually, funny, my brother last week was saying, hey, do you know of any tools? Like what's a good AI tool to, like, I want to have this really complex spreadsheet that I need to figure out. I said, well, you don't want a complex spreadsheet. You just want a tool that will walk you through and give you the information. Like you got to think of the end goal and it will come up with a better way to do it. And it's not going to be a spreadsheet or a document. No one wants to read a 30-page document. They want to, if they're looking for data, they want to see it visualized. If they're looking
Yep.
for functionality, they want to see a tool that wizard like in a wizard way walks you through what is this, what's this, and here's the answer you're looking for. So it's gotten so fast and easy that the spreadsheets and software and interfaces there is no more interface. The interface is dynamic and it's generated in optimal ways by AI. So it's definitely completely transformed. And people will say, I need to solve this. Okay, build me an app. Like before that would be crazy because that's years and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now it's minutes, and it's better and a better experience for the end user to have an app or a tool versus what you would get traditionally. So it's completely transformed and getting better and better every time.
So but I think for a long time, I've been hearing people talk about implementing AI into their business versus creating an AI native business. And I think I never totally could wrap my head around what exactly does that mean, right? Does it mean if I understand if all I'm doing is using ChatGPT to ask you questions, I'm not an AI native business. But when I build tools using AI, do I become an AI native business? I don't think that's necessarily true yet either. I'm finally starting to wrap my head around an AI native business has AI at its core. And the core of that means that everything is running through the AI. And so I used to think, as I say this out loud, it sounds insane. I used to think a long 2 weeks ago that that was going to be so far off. To make an entirely AI native dealership was going to be really far off and complicated, because the way I looked at it was the only way you'll pull this off is if you build everything from scratch using AI natively. So you would have to build a DMS, you'd have to build a CRM, you'd have to build recreate all of these things that other people have built for a very long time. And I know that, yes, building a DMS from scratch is theoretically possible now. It is, you could do it. It's still a huge lift. Every time I go into Lizzie or Lightspeed or all that, and I go, oh shit, these are all decisions that need to be made, and all things that you need to build. So it is tougher than what people, they start vibe coding like, oh man, we could build anything, like within reason. I mean, it's still When you build bigger stuff, it gets more complex.
The 80-20 rule still exists, and you can get 80% of the way there in like no time and 20% of the time, but the last 20%, it definitely takes 80% of the time.
It's all the other little things you didn't think about, all the secret data that's going to get out, all the problems you're going to deal with, all the things that'll break, and how do you fix them later if you don't know what's on the inside. Anyway, all of that stuff, I used to think that's what it required. It required, if you're going to build AI native dealership, you need that at the core. But I've started to realize that agents are getting so good, and the ability to build an agentic operating system is a reality. And what that means is I don't need to replace all of my tools yet. I can actually augment all of my tools by putting that layer in between everything. Like basically having AI be the hub of communication across the humans and the different software packages we have right now. And I feel like that's a much closer evolution than we've ever been at previously. Today's podcast is brought to you by Chester River Consulting. Now, Chester River is the direct marketing company that we used in the turnaround project and still at the dealer lab. And it is the company that goes through our DMS. It pulls all of our customer data and it communicates with them in life cycles. So that life cycle management component where we're talking to customers in meaningful ways just at the right time that's relevant to them, that takes a lot of work if you're expecting your team to be able to do it. When Chester River contacts our customers on our behalf through messaging that we have designed along with them, they actually contact a third of my customer base every single month. I mentioned that in the podcast and kind of talk about that in more detail as we go through this. But these are the guys who actually do it. If you're interested in talking to them about how they can do it in your store, contact them at sales@fueledbycrc.com. Again, that's sales@fueledbycrc.com. And enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, I think, again, just coming fresh off of the Salesforce conference, they use the term agentic enterprise, like you have to become an agentic enterprise, which basically is sort of an AI first. It doesn't mean there's no humans left in the enterprise, but it's the agents are doing a lot of the heavy, repetitive, tedious lifting, and then the humans are there. And I think we talked about this in the past too, is just that I really do see where the humans become agent managers. Like that's the most valuable team members are the ones that really embrace this and become the agent managers, because they have to provide them the information, train them, making sure that that human element is there and be there for support when an agent isn't trained on something, because they don't just, they figure out a little bit, but they don't have the experience that someone has, or that personal experience that will add value, and that human connection as well. But yeah, I think that AI first, where you have agents doing the tedious stuff that is time consuming, that isn't value add, and then the humans can add a lot more, we'll have a lot more time to add a lot more value. That's definitely the direction, and the companies that are going to be successful have to become agentic companies that are AI first and adopt agents to and leverage them.
Look, having 4 dealerships yourself, I'm sure that you feel very similar to how every other dealership in the world right now is feeling, where they all feel understaffed. It's all like, oh, we need more people. Like, we need people to do it. And what's interesting is, it's kind of like how I would look at technicians for so long. Like, I would have a store tell me that I need more techs, and then I'd look at their proficiency numbers, and their proficiency is 50%. It's like, you don't need more techs. You're using them half the time. You have to more effectively use them for the thing that you hired them for. And the thing you hired them for is to bill hours. And so then if you start applying that same exact concept to your other employees, like, I hired those frontline employees of a dealership so that they spend time with customers. Like, that's what they're there. They're there to communicate with customers and translate information and build trust and all those things. But how much of their day are they doing that? And how much of their day are they doing tasks that are administrative? Looking up parts, tracking stuff, submitting warranty claims, like all the admin stuff that takes 55 button clicks to do one task. What if I took all that stuff off and I didn't worry about like hiring more? I made my agents take over the administrative, repetitive, like easily programmed.
No one likes doing either.
Exactly.
And so not only can I make sure that
and also that people screw up.
Yeah.
The amount of errors that you'd be saving.
So,
Yeah,
so if
accuracy, especially when it's busy, right? Yeah, for sure.
maybe it's that 80-20 thing as well. And I feel that way just because it's a quote that Danny likes to reference all the time. I agree with him. One of my best friends came into my dealership while I was still running it and said he felt like he was distracting my employees because they're always working. But when he walks in, like he's like pulling them away from their work. And at first I wanted to defend them. Like, yeah, it's a lot of work to open repair orders and create quotes and do all that stuff. Like, yeah, they're working a lot. But the reality is they're there to make friends and like have FaceTime with customers, not to have screen time with the computer. And so if 80% of their time they're staring at the screen down there, like I bet if I walk down to the showroom right now, I'd see everybody staring at the computer screens. If 80% of the time they're staring at computer screens and not making meaningful connections with customers, then like maybe not only can we offload that stuff and make our existing staff more efficient, but I bet we can increase profitability and hire more staff to keep doing that. So that's, I think, that is so much closer than I thought it was even just 2 weeks ago, because right now we're building exactly that thing.
Yep.
So speaking of,
it's crazy. The agents, again, since we last talked to you, I dabbled a little bit with, and it is still, again, you get the different levels and some things get easier. Again, the vibe coding, building apps, super easy. When you get into some of this agent building and that, it's still earlier and a bit more, not complex, but there are it's not as smooth as say the AI, the vibe coding, like trying to set up your own open on your Mac Mini and trying to get it to do things. Like, again, I was trying to get it to do some executive assistant type stuff and emails, and it would lose memory. And so it's not like super refined, but then there's new tools coming out that are like, hey, this is like OpenClaw, but with less setup, and maybe they cost a bit more, but they're quick. And so I played with some of that, and you can set up, again, gain some real efficiencies really quick. And again, in a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, it's a whole other world. Like now it's super smooth. There's 10 different options you can use. They're cheaper, faster. And I had set up one of the testings I was doing that was awesome is like we get emails a huge time suck, right? Like we get tens of thousands across our organization. We get our Google reports, we can go in and there's like tens of thousands of emails a month, right? When you break it all down on overall users. And so if I can get that down to like even 10% less, but with agents and that you can get down to like 1/10 potentially. I had set up for myself just like a 3 time a day through through iMessage. So my agent, which I named Dash, which is after my dog. So my dog texts me like 3 times a day with here's all your summary of your emails, here's the recommended answers. And I literally just chat back with it, say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then it goes and creates all the drafts and I hit send. So these are like little quick use cases that these agents that are getting easier to build that everyone, you just step back, say, what am I spending my time on that's really not value add? And now you'll be able to have an affordable extra set of hands that takes that off your plate so you can work on those kind of more value add or bigger picture things that are more important than answering emails or filtering. Again, a lot of times filtering junk, right? Like just deleting the junk mails. If you get 10, 20, 30 a day, that's maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes a day of literally just filtering through and saying, I don't need this. While that's stuff that agents can do really well and really quickly and the time adds up. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I think so much of what we've done over the last couple months has been playing with it. I mean, it's just like what you've done. All right, I've got a Mac Mini. I can put an OpenClaw on it, and then just see what I can build, and like just be willing to try stuff out. And maybe it breaks, maybe it doesn't. We'll figure it out. And then if it does break, you just tell your AI that it broke, and then it goes in and it fixes it. And it's like this. You can just iterate so quickly and build so many cool things. So I think that's one of the things that I always suggest to people too, is that if you are interested in building an AI, but you don't know where to start, just start playing and ask the AI the best way to do it. Because honestly, it's like a really effective way of it guiding you through. And if you get answers that seem too technical, just tell it, make it less technical. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I have said exactly that, and it does just that for me very, very effectively. So
I've been I get passionate about this. I've been big advocate for it and what it could do for different businesses and even just individuals, even whether it's my family or colleagues or people in other businesses that we're talking about. And I tell them, and you can tell that everyone's sort of skeptical. And so sometimes I'll go home and I'll just like build something for them because I can't sleep. I'm like, I know how easy this is and how much it'll change their lives. And I'll build something. I'll be, hey, do you have a minute in the morning? And I built this, like, no way. And then you introduce to them and they start doing it. Like, they're like, oh my, I can't believe this. like, this is insane. It actually does work, because there's so many things where you try, like, you get roadblocked, but this just works. And like you said, if something comes up, you say, hey, this is broken. How do I fix it? Oh, do this. Okay. And it works. Like, it's not like, oh, that didn't work and I tried 20 times. It actually is at the point that it will build the tool you need quickly. And anyone I've shown and they got their hands on it, they're like, thank you so much. Like, this is game changing. Yeah. So
I had no idea
people just have to start and try it.
Yeah, it was funny. So we had, the first time we recorded this, Justin was with us the first time that we recorded, and it didn't work. But Justin was meant to be like he was meant to be like the straight guy in the conversation, right? You right now, Danny, and I don't mean that in like the way it sounded as I said that out loud. He was meant to be the non-AI nerd, because I know we're going to say stuff that some people aren't going to understand, like OpenClaw and API integrations and all that stuff. And so Justin was kind of like following along or explaining things to him as we went. And by the end of the episode, he was like, dude, I have to try this. And so we have a company Replit account. And I was like, all right, Replit's going to be the easiest to start with. Log in, build something. And he has not stopped blowing my phone up for the last like month of like, holy crap, I just built this. It's incredible. And so now he's rebuilt his entire website. He built a CRM that works directly with his website. He has a system that manages where his major units are, because he has a warehouse location. So like at what phase they are, have they been delivered yet? Are they prepped? Like all that information then goes back to his website. Like he can't stop building now. He's so excited about it. And so it really is just like, if you haven't tried it yet, there is no excuse anymore. Just go to replit.com or go to even just ChatGPT and ask it how to build something, and it'll tell you where to go and what to use. And it's pretty incredible now.
Yeah. Yeah, we even our district sales managers, our dealer reps, partner reps, they'll call on a dealer and then they'll try and, hey, what are your biggest frustrations right now? What are you struggling with? How are things going? And they'll say, this, they'll have some issue or some technical issue or system issue, something that's bugging them. They say, I've been trying to get this done. It's okay, hold on one sec. And literally in like a minute turns around like, would this help? And like, here's a little tool on Lovable or something like that. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing. Even we've implemented for like almost like just like a hub temporarily we just download all of our data and create sort of like a knowledge hub for our customer experience team or service advisors, so that like, hey, is this compatible with is this trolling motor compatible with this fish finder? And so we downloaded like Johnson Outdoor and Garmin and all these things, and we just putting all the data in, so it's just a hub that they can just ask questions, because there's so much out there now. It's really hard, like as a especially on the electronic side, right? It's just moving so fast to keep track of how this works and how that works. Is this compatible, and how do you network this fish finder to this troll? It's just a lot. So we're trying to just build tools, and we build them quick. And this is an example of, hey, we could say, hey, let's step back and build it in the bigger picture, and in 6 months we'll have something. Or do we have something in a couple of days that won't integrate with stuff later, but it gives them an answer in season when they need it. When a customer says, hey, I was thinking about buying this, will this work with that? You have an answer, right? So it's just so quick to build some of these quick win tools. It's
I love that you just mentioned that exact thing. That is exactly what I built right before we got on this podcast. Yesterday, Danny and I were hanging out, and I threw together a tool that scrapes our DMS for repair order details. So it pulls everything. It's got, the customer name, the major unit, the mileage, every single bit of the vehicle information, every single job that's ever been created in this store first, what the labor time was of billable and wrench, what the technician internal notes were, what the customer facing notes were, every single thing that's in there, parts that were on the repair order. And then once we could get it to scrape one, we've got a group of stores that we're working with that we're trying to help build these tools with. And so we scraped all of them. So we've got hundreds of thousands of individual job lines now. So when we say, oh, well, how much is it to install, I'll go marine on this, a fish finder on this particular boat, it would basically search every single job that's existed out of all of those and determine what's the median, where our variance is, what vehicles does this go on, and it gives us all that context to really quickly identify what the labor times are. And this came from a conversation with the service advisor saying, what will help you save as many hours in one day as possible? It's like, quoting takes me forever. So we built this, but now we've already put in the historical repair order data. Now we're pulling job template data. So we make sure that if any of those stores have templates, it'll refer to those first. And then we're just starting to pump in repair or service manual data. So once you start having that, we know exactly what the OEM says the services are. And then you're building this incredible knowledge base where you don't need a service advisor who's been there for 30 years and knows every single thing off the top of their head. You have that. And that means that every single service advisor you do have, whether they work there for 10 years or 10 minutes, is going to have the same level of knowledge. And so that component wasn't possible 2 weeks ago. Just to the level of scraping and interacting and pulling that data. Everybody knew the data existed in all these different places, but it's hard to put together. And then now it's evolving so quickly that creating this big centralized, not just knowledge base on how much labor time is, but how to do the job is kind of what we're working on right now.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the data is the key, right? Because that's what it has to have, the information, and that's one of the challenges that we run into is just, do you have clean data, quality data? Can you get the data? How accurate is the data? Because that's what it's learning on, and if you give it bad information, then you end up with a not a very intelligent agent if it's
giving the wrong quotes all the time.
The information, so that's a key, is getting the data becomes so valuable.
Yeah,
so important.
Yeah, actually, what's been funny has been, so Danny and I have been working on this new agent team, this new team of agents that are going to work with the employees in the lab, right? So far, our agents have been helping us kind of build Onyx and run podcasts and do all the other kind of stuff that we're doing, build reports for stores. But now we're building the agentic team that's going to run the store. So it's a different scope of work. So we have to design a new team. And so to do that, I had built the first team of agents, and I was going to, Danny and I needed to work on this next set at the same time because it was going to be a really, really big build. And so we needed to figure out a way to start building documentation to train our agents. And so all that means, I'm sure you're aware of this, Jamie, but all it means is really an agent is nothing more than a really good AI model, like this, 5.5 or Claude's Opus 4.7, like a really smart engine is that LLM, or the brain is the LLM. And then the instructions that you give it, all in what are called markdown files, which are basically like Word documents that computers read more effectively. Those instructions are what make it an agent. So you're just giving a brain some context. Or like, I think I described it earlier as the LLM model, when you're chatting to ChatGPT and that stuff, that is a brain, but it has no memory. It doesn't remember what you talked about last time. It's got no context of what you're talking about. It doesn't know what's happening. So you're giving it like more information, and then you start connecting it to other things, which kind of starts giving it this body of an agent. So you can then talk to it and say, hey, create this repair order, and it can then execute because it has instructions on when he says this, I would log into this system and do these different things.
And guardrails. Guardrails are the important thing too, because if you tell it you're not allowed to do this, it will listen. It will listen.
There's a lot to guardrails and a lot to that.
It's important.
Yes. So what's funny is we need to start building it. And so I just talked to Claude and said, we need to build this. There's gonna be two of us building. We need to create all the documentation, all the governance, all the other markdown files. That is really, it isn't us writing code. It's literally us writing down, here's how a service advisor does his job, like step by step by step. And so we started building this, and then I built it in a way where, you can ask Claude to give you multiple choice questions and give me options and answers. So it's that'll be the easiest way for us to build this, is that we're going to build the framework of our documentation, and then we're going to basically, Danny and I are both going to be building, and it's going to be saving those documents in a shared drive folder for us so that we can reference them and see the updated versions and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Danny, it's Danny's first step into building agents. This was the very first time, and I was like, okay, here's what an agent is. It's just files. So you're going to start writing files. I sent him an email with here's the prompt you're going to paste into chat, and it's just going to kick you off and start going. And Danny, I'll let you explain it from here because I knew what was happening. You were not aware.
It was just, it was unbelievable. I thought that it'd be just so much more input from me, the connections that it made. And I guess now I'm thinking that it does have access to a lot of knowledge that we've given it, but just describing how a service advisor's role works and what their day-to-day looks like. After a series of questions, it gave me, all right, here's the first pass of the markdown file. And it was so unbelievably close. It was crazy. I mean, there were little things like, where it would give real world scenarios, and it would say like, say I'm a service advisor and I'm selling a $100 oil filter. It's like, okay, you got that wrong, but everything else is right. Like, it's crazy.
And I think it's really humbling, because almost anything you do, I guarantee it asks you a bunch of questions that you didn't think about, and it had answers that were better than the answers you would. So despite spending your whole life in an industry, it still knows better than you with like a quick set of questions. Say, oh my God, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of that. Oh, Absolutely. It's so smart. Oh, I wish I had this information.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because probably 4 years ago, when Max and I first started this trip, we built a humongous mind map of a service department with like tiny font, every little thing that happens in the service department when. Then we just did this, creating these agents. Like, oh my God, look at all the things we missed that we know, but we didn't put on the thing. It's just incredible.
I found that's the big change in even the last 6 months is, or maybe longer, but in the past, it's like, hey, it was all about prompting. You have to be very specific and make sure you do all this. But now I almost feel like I don't want to be too specific, because if you're too specific, it actually is like not as good as when you're more generic. If you just give it the outcome you're looking for, I want it to be the best this. It will have such a, because you can always fine tune the stuff that you can think of that's missing, but it does so much more, so much better, and so much more, whether it's analytic, anything, it'll give you way better information than if you try to ask it for something specific. So Agreed. I actually feel it's shifted to where before it was like, make sure you have this clear, concise, very, very specific prompt, to I actually err on the side of being a little bit more generic and not feeding it too much information, because it's so much smarter.
Yeah, agreed.
One thing that's been interesting.
That's probably debatable. For some people may not agree, but that's how I found.
No, I reason the exact same way.
I completely agree. Yeah, my brain is governing and throttling the creativity of the AI. For sure.
Yeah, because we know it's done this way, which brings actually an interesting kind of point that Danny and I got to recently when we were working with this. When we were designing our agents the first time, we designed we have this, what we call our orchestrator agent, which is Samantha, like the main agent that everybody talks to back and forth. And then there's a team of other agents underneath that. We have the team of agents working for Onyx doing things like financial analysis is one of them. One of them does spatial analysis work. One of them does memory. So like logging correspondence and saving it later. Like they have these special skills. When we were building the agent team for the dealership, started by saying, okay, well, maybe we'll have like an orchestrator agent that communicates with everybody, and then we'll have maybe a service advisor assistant agent, and we'll have a sales advisor assistant agent. And then the more we worked on it and worked with Claude and started designing it, the more we realized that if I'm building an agent that, let's say I'm building a service advisor agent and a parts agent, right? Both of them are going to have to use the DMS. Both of them are going to have to be able to look up parts. Both of them are going to have like overlapping tasks. So what we realized is really what we're going to do is we are entering in all of the job descriptions and every single like minute detail of how to do a job across every employee inside the dealership. And then kind of imagine like breaking all of that down and saying like, all right, there are these silos between departments. And that is because of knowledge base, like these specific knowledges and specific skill sets in different areas. What if we broke down what the job description was? If you think of the job description as a bunch of little tasks, and we say, now take all those tasks and just like shake them up. And now there is no one job description. It is this big list of tasks. Then we take those tasks and we go back through them and say, okay, which ones can we organize as one agent can do all of the parts ordering and tracking or something like that. Or one agent can do all of the unit builds or whatever the things like skill sets. And then your employees in the store are utilizing multiple agents. They don't just one that has a really huge markdown file with a bunch of descriptions and explanations. Yeah. You instead have this skill set everywhere, which then once you think more about how does that change the store, suddenly I don't have a specialist who's just a service advisor. I have a service advisor that can sell a vehicle, And then I don't just have an F&I person. I have an F&I person that can check you in for service. Like all this stuff then totally changes how the dealership interacts with the customers. So it's like you really get to just totally reimagine the dealership entirely because of this layer that exists now.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's back to it's the employees that have to work and manage the agents. As long as they can or use the agents, leverage the agents, but ultimately they can do anything because the agent is doing the heavy lifting, has the deep knowledge. They just need the customer experience. They just have to be good with people and get interactions and that sort of thing. So it just changes everything.
So you have a good view of kind of where things are going. What are you working on now? What does the future look like for Legend Boats with all this?
So one of our projects right now that we're leveraging AI for that is a bit more strategic and a kind of a bigger picture thing is we launched a new brand of pontoons, like a premium pontoon line called Vetta. Yep. So outside of Legend, so sort of the Lexus Toyota, Legend would be sort of the Toyota, and Vetta would be sort of the Lexus, I guess, equivalent in the pontoon side. And it's been a big opportunity. It's been going well, but we really wanted to focus on the experience as much as the product. There's a lot of great pontoons out there, but how can we do stuff a little bit different on the experience side? We have things like you get to name your boat, you have 24/7 customer service, kind of a line you can call, these sorts of things. And it's been very good, but we haven't had, I'd say that our digital tools haven't made it easy. It's a lot of like manual labor to make this experience good. And as soon as you get into that, you have issues, errors, or there's just risk of it not being consistent or smooth when things get busy. And so we're building, it's an opportunity because it is a newer brand. And so we're kind of rethinking it from scratch to say, what's this experience look like from a digital tools and experience standpoint in terms of, the partner portal, how do you claim warranty, how do you book service, how do you, all that sort of stuff, right? How do you get support from a customer standpoint, the dealer standpoint? So we're really rethinking that, and that's sort of the project that we're working on. That's a bigger picture project, but we're going to be building all of the external or facing or customer and partner facing components and interface with AI vibe coding tools. And then in the short term, we'll definitely still tie that back, probably with either the Headless 360 or even just more manual kind of mapping and wiring into Salesforce as our backend. But that's probably one of the bigger projects, just rethinking what a brand. So from a brand standpoint, manufacturer brand standpoint, what can that experience look like for a partner dealer and for a consumer? That's a little different than maybe what you've seen in the past.
That sounds like the perfect test bed for this. I mean, it really is like
good timing.
You don't have to reimagine the dealership yet. You just reimagine the ownership experience of your premium brand and then let that trickle down into the rest of the operation.
Exactly. It'll eventually make its way all the way through. Exactly.
That sounds fascinating. I'm excited to see as you start building that stuff out.
Yeah.
Does anything exist of it now?
I would say the plan, we're trying to nail down to make sure we have the proper plan in place, and we've kind of had all the different functions, because it's gonna have a marketing element, like basically every function of the business. So we haven't really started the vibe coding because we want to make sure we have, but that's the thing, when you do it this way, you want to just jump in and do it. It's like, just let me start and see, but we do want to plan a little bit. So I'd say this quarter, we're going to have a lot of it. I think once we get started, it'll get completed really quick because we do have a good plan, and the vibe coding, it just goes so quickly. And when you have a strategy in place, it just brings that kind of bigger picture, long-term usability together. But it's early stages, but it'll come quick in the next 2 months probably.
That's
so
fascinating.
We have our partner conference in September, and so we're really hoping that we'll be able to launch some significantly cool stuff to our partners then.
That's great. Well, man, I need to hear more. So when we'll come back, we'll have you on the show again once this thing's up and running and see how it all works.
For sure. And I want to hear more on the agent side, because again, I've dabbled a little bit personally, but we definitely do want to transform into an agentic enterprise. And we have some discussions, some early stage plans for that, but you've kind of dived in a little quicker and further along. So I'd love to hear more and more detail about how you set that up and what you guys are leveraging and the challenges and the benefits that you're seeing already.
For sure. I mean, every single thing I've had it do, I have been so surprised at how well it pulled it off and how quickly it pulled it off. So no, it's some exciting stuff, and we'll keep sharing ideas, and hopefully we didn't lose the listeners too much. But if you are a listener still and you have no idea what we're talking about and you still stayed on an entire hour, then start playing with stuff is the advice. Yeah. Go to is it lovable.ai?
I don't know if it's .ai or I'm not sure. Replit, Lovable, Google AI Studio.
Yeah,
Just Google
AI
them or
Studio.
search them or ChatGPT them, and you'll find
Just
them.
start playing. It's so much fun, and eventually you'll realize that it is going to be a huge part of what our business is moving forward, and it's happening faster than we all expect. So awesome, Jamie. Thank you so much. Thanks for being back on the show.
Yeah, no,
we'll
I
see you
always
again
enjoy it.
soon.
Thanks, guys.